you will realize that we have two, longitudinal and we have longitudinal and cross-section. I'm wondering we cannot project what we have. Are we projecting?
Yeah, I'm just trying to reconnect it soon enough.
Because of time, allow me to go to the next slide. When we talk about the experimental research design, it's a procedure for devising an experimental setting so that a change in a dependent variable may attribute only to a change in independent variable. For example, what I was giving an example of exposure to COVID-19 as a precursor or obesity. I'm just assuming I'm not an expert in that field, so I'm just trying to do. So what you will have to do, you must do a practical procedure with a control population. Control population is you are taking one kind of the respondents. For example, in that case of the COVID, you take those that are exposed to COVID and check against their obesity status, compared to those who are not exposed to COVID-19. Now that is the experimental. In an educational or in a social science setting, we might talk about maybe something like how maybe exposure to noise affects mental stability, something like that. So that's the experimental part. The quasi-experimental design is that it does not apply a control variable. You may not have a control population. That is experimental. The other part, that's what I was explaining. At the end of this, I was requested to share the slides. So I will share that. Still under the experimental, the casual research design is trying to find out the relationship of how one variable might be causing another. Okay? For example, what can we, maybe a research project or a research problem that can lead to a causal relationship? Maybe, let's say, you are talking about education level and economic stability. So you may want to identify whether education is a factor of economic facility within an household. So you will be able to identify whether the level of education will translate into
a stable economic status. Descriptive research design, I have mentioned that, unless if there will be a question later. The difference between the cross-sectional and longitudinal research design. Longitudinal research design is one that is carried out over a period of time. But as a descriptive research design, it focuses on describing the problem or the situation the way it is. But it's done over a longer period of time. For example, you might look at it as, for the one that we are talking about, academic, a discipline and academic performance. You may decide to look at a cohort, let's say the KCSE students, how they transition from Form 1 to Form 4. Then, how did they have in discipline status, in discipline level, how did it affect their KCSE mean score? But in a cross-sectional, it means something that's snapshot within a short period of time. Okay? For example, the same problem that I'm discussing, academic performance, a discipline of academic performance, you may go and look at it within maybe one term, or you go get data from Form 1 to Form 4. You must have a population that you are going to relate to, but within that time. Okay? I don't know whether the difference comes. We have a difference between the longitudinal descriptive research design and the cross-section. Exploratory research methods. The exploratory research methods, usually we use them for a field, an area that there is a researcher is not yet very sure about, and there is no much literature about it. So from the word exploratory, and mostly it's qualitative. And the reason for carrying out an exploratory research is to get into the preview so that it can lead to a deeper study later, so that there can be a follow-up. Okay? Now, in the exploratory, you can use case study analysis in the way that you collect your data. A case study is you have a given population that you are going to study or something you are going to observe. Focus group is a way of collecting data where you have a group of respondents responding to your research questions in a group setting where you can decide to record that session so that you go and analyze it later. I hope we are understanding each other. As I said, there is when you are going a case study, you might do the secondary data analysis, or the other example that I was giving with the exposure to COVID-19. You may not necessarily do it as an experiment. You can decide to do a systematic literature review, which is a secondary data. You look at the records of the patients or the data that is available so that you come up with a finding from the literature review or from that analysis of the secondary data. Are we together?
Explanatory use of it I've talked about. I think that will bring me to the conclusion of the research design. Now, just to most of us in KU, the first source of information is Mugenda. And usually the sample, depending on the size of the target population, according to that Mugenda book, you are supposed to have a population that is more than 400 and above. You can get 30%. But you know, the higher the percentage of the sample size, the greater the reliability of your findings. Okay? There is different ways. There is a formula that is available online. I'll include the link here of how to calculate the sample size virtually online, so that you just feed your general, you feed the total target population and the confidence level, or the confidence level, which mostly in this field is usually 95%. Yes. And it will give you the appropriate sample size. For a stratified sampling, for a stratified sampling, it's always advisable that you get the most representative data. Most representative data is you are doing a research on in this cases, an academic performance. In a school, obviously, you know that the number of students will be many, and the number of teachers will be fewer. Then, if you wanted maybe school, the teachers, and who else? The other people who are responsible for, in this cases, maybe county commissioners or something, county education officers. So let me take the part of the student and teachers. If you are doing a sample size of 30%, it means you will have to get 30% of the teachers and also 30% of the learners. Now, if the learners are 700, 30%, let me say the learners are 1,000, 30% will be 3,000. Teachers, if they are 100, it means you will sample 30 teachers. That's now proportionately representative. Okay? And you will be able to justify why you picked on 30 teachers and 300 learners. So I believe all of us are familiar with the kind of sampling methods that are available. Okay? I did not include them here because my major concern was on the research design. So unless there is a question, which I'm sure will come at the end of the session, I'll take it back to our MC.
For proper coordination, I suggest we note down any question we might have so that we can address it at the end of the training. So now, without wasting time, I would like us to welcome our second trainer. Dennis R. Nimely. You're welcome.
All right. Good morning. My name is Dennis R. Nimely, and I'm privileged to be a son from West Africa, Liberia specifically. Yeah. I'm so sorry I don't speak Swahili, so please bear with me as I speak very slowly and we go through this presentation. I hope we will be able to understand each other. Just in case if you don't understand me, you just call my attention. I will be able to restate what I will be saying. Okay, so we'll be talking about data analysis, and this training is organized by the Congressperson for postgraduate, and that's my information. For our presentation, what we'll be looking at, quantitative data, and then we'll look at the pre-analysis of data, or in terms of analyzing the data, what you need to start with first before going further. Then we'll go up to qualitative data, the steps that are in qualitative data analysis, and then for the C portion, we'll be looking at analyzing data using software. There are so many different software that we use to analyze data. And one of the effective, but we always overlooked software is our Office, whichever Office you are using, Microsoft Office, like maybe Office 365, in the 2010, 2007, 2019, 2021. Excel helps us to analyze data. And in fact, once you have Microsoft Office installed on your computer, you don't need to buy Excel. So we will throw light on few softwares that are used to analyze data, and we'll do short practice on some if time and it permit us to do that. So the introduction to this is, we all know what we mean by data analysis. So I just have this information there, and there are processes that we go through to analyze our data. One, we collect the data, that which we will ought to. Once you finish your chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3, and your proposal have been approved, you will certainly have to collect data. And once you are on the field of data collection, that's one process of coming to analyzing data. You cannot analyze data when you don't have the data, right? So we first collect the data. After collecting the data, the next step we'll do is to clean the data. Find what missing, what is not in the data, or what in the data that should not be there. That's the cleaning aspect. So you are taking out those things that you don't want. For data scientists, they call it the outliers. So you clean the data, you transform the data, that's data transformation. And then you mold the data, going through modeling. The next one is you visualize, coming up with graphs, like charts or so forth. That's the process. So we have 5 steps that we go through. It might be more of them, but these are the 5 pressing steps we go through in collecting data. So we're talking about using software. We say data can be analyzed with the use of various software tools. Now I just listed a few of them. There will be so much more. You see, Excel is one of those softwares. We have Python, we have R, we have SPSS, Orange, GMP, SAT, etc. All of these things depend on what you want to do, which one you are familiar with, which one you are okay with in analyzing your data. The bottom line is you want your data to be analyzed and you obtain your degrees and move on, right? So which software is good for you to use, you use that. Now we talk about pre-analysis of the data. We listed few steps that are involved. The first thing is, once you have collected the data in step 1 of what we talk about in the data analysis, once the data is being collected, the next thing is you clean the data. The data should be clean, right? So we're talking about taking out those things that are not necessary and looking for those things that are missing, which are so important to the data. That's the cleaning process, right? So say they involve you identifying corrections, you have errors that you saw. There are times while answering the questions or the question when we are administering our questionnaires, the respondents might give wrong answers that are not relevant to our study. So that's the cleaning process you are going through. The next one is you transform the data. So in the transformation process, it's like, for example, yes or no questions, or any component of the questionnaire that have to do with yes or no. You have to transform it into a value before you can analyze that. You cannot leave it as yes or no and analyze. So that aspect of it is transformation. When you're converting the data into a suitable format for analysis, using categorical data, you transform it into numerical data. That's what we're talking about. So that's the transformation aspect, yes or no. So I can assign 0 to be no, 1 to be yes. Now, once I apply that coding that I have done, it means I have transformed the categorical into a numerical that will enable me now to do my analysis. That's the transformation. And then we said the next one is explore the data. So talk about data should be explored. Here, what we do, we come in with our various charts or graphs or whatever. Like you want to use bar chart. So if it was a yes or no question, how many persons have said yes, how many persons have said no? Maybe I want to represent that information on a graph, on a bar graph. So you see the bars will be shooting out to tell how many persons say yes to that particular question or that component of the questionnaire that I administer, and how many persons said no, the bar will show. If I want to use a pie chart, I can also do that. So that's the visualization of the data. You visualize it, make it a picture that people can see. Then you also do data reduction. You reduce the data. Reduce the data, the number of variables in the data set, retaining the most important one. All of those things involve the data cleaning. In data science, they say that's the modeling, the training of the data. You train the data. So once the data have been trained, you're taking out those things that are not necessary and making it presentable. And the next one is you integrate the data. Then, importantly, we said pre-analysis in the data analysis process can help to ensure that the data is accurate. Why are we doing this pre-analysis process? Is first we want to make our analysis very accurate. So that's why it is important to do pre-analysis. The pre-analysis is where you have to clean the data, transform the data, visualize the data, and so forth. As you are going through that process, you are identifying errors, you are correcting errors, you are moving on. That's the reason why it is important to go through this process. Now, pulling and entering of quantitative data. Once we have collected our data, we don't gone through the pre-analysis process, we now come to do the coding. Be it in Excel, whatever software you want to use. you have to code the data. Because that's a categorical data, right? Male, female, we are putting it into categories. But now, if we want to analyze such data, we have to transform that categorical to numerical, which will help us do the analysis. So we said there are few steps that we follow in doing that. One, you plan the coding scheme. Which number you want to assign to what, you should decide. It's not something you just do randomly. It should be uniform so that it can work in an organized manner as you do your work. So you plan your scheme, then the next thing, you do the coding, you code the data. After you have planned what you want to, like for example, I'm using let's say certified, decertified, right? What is that? Decertified or certified, which one? Okay, the grammar will help us in that one. So certified and decertified. Let's use those two words as a response attempt to our questions or questionnaires. So you have collected data from all of us on the certification level of this training. People are saying they are certified and others are responding uncertified, maybe due to other situation. Now you want to analyze such data. You cannot leave it as categorical as they are, or you cannot leave it as they are in text to analyze. Instead, you have to transform them into numerical. So in that, I could assign 0 to be uncertified, 1 to be certified. Then I now use the number now to analyze. With that, I will know how many persons from this group said they were uncertified with the training and how many persons are certified with the training. Is that okay? Good. So that's why we code, we do the coding. Then the next step we say, after you have done that, you enter your data. Depending on which software you want to use. So we say you enter the data. Entering the data, if you are using SPSS, you have to enter the data. If you are using Excel, you have to enter the data. Whatever software you are using to analyze the data, you have to enter the data. That's the process. After you have done that, you verified and clean. So in the process of entering your data, you might have some mistakes along the way. So you have to verify and then you clean. Cleaning is correcting those mistakes that you have made or the errors that you identified. That's what you do. Then the next thing now is you plan the data for analysis. Now you are prepared now to analyze what you have. So once you plan what you want to code and you do the coding, you verify your coding. Now the next thing is to move on with your analysis. Are we making sense? Okay. Please, if you are not understanding me, again, I apologize for being a West African. Okay, so the next one we'll talk about the data analysis and interpretation. Whenever we analyze our data, we have to interpret it. Isn't so? Right? Good. And that's what will give us our, because it is based on what we have interpreted, that when we are defending, the final thesis will be questioned from. Isn't so? So it's important not just only analyzing the data, but it's also important to interpret what you have analyzed. Are we together? So we said we have 3 steps that are involved in the analysis process. We have the data preparation, we have the descriptive statistics. Now, once you have done your analysis, you have to describe. So that aspect is all referred to as descriptive statistics. So we're talking about description, describing, giving instruction of what you have done, why this is this. So if we're looking at those that say yes or no, I think a more common thing will say 30% out of 40 say yes to these questions, or maybe say they are certified. That number already presented, so that for descriptive, you are not very under pressure to give interpretation, because the numbers will indicate what you want to say. That's why back home one of our politicians should say, numbers don't lie. Yes, numbers don't lie. If someone sign for 1 million KN shillings, it can lie. Isn't so? Yeah. So descriptive statistics, we say they are used to summarize the distribution of the data that you have. So like means, mode, median, range, looking at those areas and so forth, right? Thank you. Then we have the inferential. After you have prepared, you have analyzed, you have done your description or whatever, the next one is to make an inference, to say, because of this information I have, because of the evidence that I have gathered from the field, therefore, this can do this. This can do this, right? So, for example, like you was talking about the COVID-19 as an example, right? Maybe someone was studying on the effect or the impact of the COVID-19. Maybe adult trauma, through trauma, and healing or something else. And then after you have gathered all of your evidences from what you collected as a data you analyze, now you'll be making a preference inference now. Because of this outbreak, people had this. Therefore, health ministry should do this, because actually it is based on the data that we make our recommendation. Isn't so? Right? Where do our recommendation come from? From the data, isn't it? Yeah. Good. So we make inference. So we say inference, we make inferences about the population based on sample data. Sample data based on what we have. Hypothesis testing and confidence intervals are commonly used to test significance of relationships between variables. So that's how we use now we make our inference. That this variable influences this variable because of the data you have, right? Well, the next one is correlation and regression. So we do correlation, test or regression. Correlation, we're looking at relationship, right? What impact what? This is so. So that will happen based on, because in your study you have dependent variable and independent variables, right? So it is the independent variable that influences the dependent variable. So based on the data you have analyzed, you'll be saying that this independent variable have an impact on this, or it does not have an impact based on the hypothesis that you have set and you tested. So we do those processes and we interpret our data just as we do. Now, the interpretation for correlation. We say once the analysis is complete, the results are interpreted to draw conclusions and make inferences. So we draw conclusion from what we have analyzed and we present a way forward. That's how we term it to be like. That's a way forward, right? Say if people are passing through this door, maybe it was causing some harm, and based on the data we have collected, we noticed that this going through this door will create a harm. I can now say if 10 persons pass through the door, their wall will break based on what I have gotten. Therefore, let them use this way, right? Now, we said the result can be interpreted as follow: 1, the correlation coefficient that is near +1, positive 1. Remember, the coefficient of a correlation is plus or minus 1, not more than, right? Plus or minus 1. It's either -1. So we say it's between -1 and +1. That's what we are trying to say, right? So if the correlation coefficient is near +1, that implies that the two variables are highly and directly associated. So after you have done your data analysis and you notice that maybe you have done your data analysis, your correlation analysis, and you notice that your result is positive, is near +1, that means those two variables are associated. They have a relationship. So we give an instance. We say A influence B. A have a relationship or A have an impact on B or something, right? And then we say if the coefficient is near -1 implies that variables are highly but indirectly associated. So they don't have a direct relationship. That's what I mean. Indirect meaning the relationship is not direct, right? Okay. So A can influence B. That could be our example. Then we say if the coefficient is near 0, that implies there is a little or no relationship or no association or whatever. Those two variables don't have association. Either they don't have it or they are little, moderate association. Any question? Any concern? Yes, sir?
How can we get these notes?
Sorry? These lectures?
Yeah.
Oh, don't worry. We'll share it in a group chat with the help of the honorable congressman. Yes, sir?
Thank you for the presentation. I asked a question. For example, you have subject use for experimental research design. You have a control group of experimental, which is statistical research appropriate to use between descriptive statistics or empirical statistics. Like in descriptive, you can use either more mean or median, but I was not quite questioning empirical statistics. Yeah, whether you can use that transfer statistics or use line deviation.
So the question is, whether in experimental design you could use descriptive statistics or inferential statistics, or you could use the both. That's the question you're asking, right? And I believe that question is a very nice question. So the question go on the floor. The question is, can we use descriptive statistics only in a quasi-experimental design? Can we use inferential statistics only in a quasi-experimental design, or can we use both in a quasi-experimental design? So what's the take on that? Then maybe we can go further. Any concern, any comment?
So for me, I think the issue is to use both because in your business design, we say that a design is a strategy, which also is a plan. So the plan will lead you to what set of instrument you are using. So it is based on the instrument. For example, you are using quasi-experimental, you have a control group and a focus group. So let's just say, for example, you are doing like pre and post test, right? So if you are doing pre and post test, you do information because you have to use show the relationship, whether there was any relationship between the two tests that you gave. You getting that? You administer the pre-test, keep the result, you train the teacher. At the end of the day, you administer the test again, and you do that analysis between the two to know whether the two are directly related or not. And also, it based on your tools that you can use either descriptive statistics or you use both. So the tools enable you to actually know which type of research analysis or data analysis to do. So it's based on the tools that you'll be able to do those analysis.
Okay, thank you for that response. I think he deserves a beautiful hand clap from both of you. No, once you say beautiful hand clap, it's only beautiful ladies you clap. Okay, so any other concern, any other intake? Okay, yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. The kind of statistics to use will depend on the research objective that we have. Let's assume we are talking about the differences. There is no difference between the performance in the experimental group and that of the control group. So if you are looking at the difference there, then we can use the inferential, that is the inferential statistics.
Yeah.
That one can be okay. For example, you are using the independent student sample t-test. From the independent sample t-test, already we have some descriptive statistics there. The mean is already stated there. Then you can also get the mean difference. Then the t-value can also give us whether there's a very difference between the performance there. So after getting that, using the independent sampling details to get the differences, then we can still go ahead to use the PET sample, independent sample details.
Yeah.
That will now give us most of the group has gained more based on the intervention use. If the experimental group has gained more mean scores or the control group, and if that happens, then that can really give us whether there is a real difference between the two groups with respect to the intervention use, and which group is the mean score gain favoring. Is it the experimental group that is favoring or the control group?
Thank you so much. I think you also deserve a beautiful hand clap on the beautiful ladies. Thank you. So, thank you for the question. And in fact, that question is actually an addendum to our teaching. You are right. You know, just as he was teaching research methodology or design, we cannot do away with qualitative and quantitative separately, even when we conduct research. Even if you say your research is qualitative, you will certainly have quantitative aspect of it. Isn't so? Good. So it's the same. In as much as you are doing quasi-experimental, yes, that's the design, but you will certainly have quantitative component of that study. Therefore, descriptive statistics will be good there. Just as you put it, you are using the independent t-test. Remember, you will have to find standard deviation and so forth before getting to where you want to get to. All those processes that you are passing through, you need to use descriptive statistics. So we cannot just divulge them totally. They work together. Thank you. Now, analyzing qualitative data. Oh, sorry for the, the O should not be there. So forgive me for that. Before you get to you, we'll remove the O. Yeah. So we said qualitative data processing. You see, for qualitative is a bit different from quantitative. For qualitative, we have video recordings, interview scripts, and so forth, right? You don't have numbers. These are statements or sentences that people write, and so forth. So to analyze this one, you have to first prepare the data, and then you get yourself familiar with the data by reading the responses. Why are you reading the responses? Why do you want to familiarize yourself with the data? Because you want to find patterns, you want to find categories, you want to find themes. That's why you should read the data. Now, after you have done that, then you code. There's something we call transcription. You transcribe the data from its raw state, right? So you see, when we talk about data analysis, we are talking about breaking it to its finished stage. Like you have which refinery company you have in Kenya here? I want to make reference to, because I don't want to use mine from West Africa. Okay, like I believe these soda are produced in Kenya, right? Okay. Anyway, so let's say that this water is produced in Kenya. This water went through process to be placed in this bottle, isn't so? Now, so that process for it to reach me and sit on this table so that I can consume, it means it went through process. It's the same as what we do about that. And once we collect them, those processes that we are going through, we are preparing them. We are, so I say, cooking them to reach to our bowls for eating. Right? Good. So it's the same with this qualitative data. You must prepare it so that when it is reaching you, then you understand what you have done. So in doing that, you have to get yourself familiar with it. So that was type of familiarizing yourself with the data, and then you code the data. Now, You do categorization. You put them in categories based on the responses. Who talked about this? How many persons talked about this particular thing? That's why you needed to have familiarized yourself with data, because that will help you to do your categories, to do your grouping, and then you develop teams. Team development. We said the researchers group their course into broader categories and then identify overarching themes that capture the essence of the data. Are we there? So that's why it's important to do that. Now the next one is to do data triangulation. If you get to Mojana's book, he talks much about this triangulation, how to do data triangulation. You just go at the bookstore there, it's there for just small shillings, I think.
Which book?
Mojana research method. I think it's the 10th or 5th edition or something like that. Okay. So the next thing after you have done this, the 7th step is to report the data. You write a report. You write your report based on those things you saw from the information you got, right? Thank you.
How do you code?
Sorry.
How do you do that?
Okay, so in the coding, there are softwares we use. That's what we talk about, the transcribing the data. Once you have familiarized yourself with the data, you do the categories, you play them into categories, develop teams. There's a software, it's called QDA, but it's purchasable, so that's what I'm slowing down my voice in saying it. It's, you have to buy it. You have to buy it. It's QDA minor light. MINNER light. So that when I'm done with projection, I will show you that which I'm talking about on my laptop. So usually what I do, I ask myself, and one thing one of my friends says is that Google have become so smart and smarter than even us. If you forget your own name, you ask, what is my name? I think Google will want to tell you your name. Yeah, so you could ask Google to give you some free open source qualitative data analysis softwares. You might find that. Thank you. But I actually check, I haven't found it yet. So if you find it, you'll be a help to me also. Yeah.
Some give you like
they have 30 day free trial anyway. They want like you want to talk more.
If you know that you are doing your data, you don't register for that moment. You leave it. When you are about to do this, then you go to it. You use that 30 days free. When you are done, you leave it. You are going by your way.
But again, for ethics, risk and ethical consideration, any software that you are using that is purchasable, that you should buy, you should have the license. You should have the license, so you don't just use it, and so the license also needed. Thank you. But whatever the case, we will move on. Now the next one look here is, I actually will move it. Under that saying, quantitative data using software. Please forgive me for the misspell. You know, I'm born in a place that English wasn't then spoken, and then later the American shifted that in a ship, and they brought some group of like guys, and they brought the English to us. So
your parent is copy and paste.
So now we're looking at using qualitative data or analyzing qualitative data using softwares. We start with Excel. Just a little introduction to this. Please, I'm not an expert in these things, so forgive me. If you know it more than I have presented, it's okay. We can also learn from each other. But Excel is another powerful tool that we use for data analysis. We use that for data analysis. We use that to analyze data, to visualize data, and so forth. I'm still reading. I believe it also takes care of qualitative data also, and I hope to get to the end of my reading and then I will do a slash. It may not be in this kind of presentation, and I will just ask the congressman for his permission, and then we'll send it in a group chat as you go on. But Excel is another powerful tool as we work with. So these are just few things we do. We say we calculating means. The descriptive component of the statistic that we're doing, right? Mean, mode, median, and so forth, right? Range and so on. Now, how to calculate that in Excel? We say I talked about a few types of means when you go to Excel. You have the geometric means, you have the harmonic mean, you have the arithmetic means, you have the trimmed mean, and so I decided to just throw light on them, because if you don't know what to do and you get to Excel will be giving you those list of means, and then you don't know which one to choose. Is which one? So they are used as you should look at. So for geometric means, we're looking at growth rates, investment return, and so forth, right? So we say in this, we use this formula equal. So in Excel, if you are using a formula in Excel, you start with an equal sign first, and then the comment, and then the cells names or whatever. So we say equal GEO is the short form for the geometric that we want to spell, right? And the means. And then the parenthesis open and close. Number 1, number 2, number 3 as a move on. That's the label of the cell or the value in a cell. You know, Excel have a cell, it have rows, and it have columns, right? And each column has its own block. So if you type a particular value in a block in Excel, it gave a name, right? So for example, if I'm in row A, column 1, it will be A1 because I'm in row A, column 1. If I'm in row A, column 10, Excel will name that particular cell which I'm in A10. That's the reference. You get it? Good. So number 1 will be that particular cell and the number and so forth. We say this implies that the cell range of data. For instance, cell A range from 1 to, so I don't know about Office 2007, because I have, in fact, when we were using Office 2007, but then I know nothing about computer, so I have never gone around it. Office 2010, then I started to learn about computer a bit. Office 2013, also then my speed was a bit increasing. So what I can really speak to is 16, Office 2016, 2019, 2021, 365. So for Office 365, which I'm using, what I'm using is 365. The number of cells in a row in Excel is 16,384. I wish this was enough KN shillings, at least I go home with good money. Yeah. So from 1 to 364, so you see, if you are in row A, it will be A 16384. That's the last cell, which you will not have a data that reach to that corner. The more, especially for our daily research we're doing, maximum 500. Let's say maybe minimum 500, maximum 1005. Who and data set is or sample size is about 5,000. Or maybe the PhD people do that. So, okay, so maybe we will have maximum 5,000. Yeah. So we won't reach that. I just thought to just include these things so you can know what I was talking about. So we can do something like this. Equal geo mean I use a column. So the column calls for start from this point and end with this point. That's what the column does in Excel. So I'm saying this calculation is starting from the first cell of row A to the 34th cell of row A. And once I've done this, rightfully and hit the enter key on my computer, automatically Excel give me the answer. That's the wizard. Yeah. And I don't have to. So it depends on where your data stops. That's what I'm saying. So I put 34, maybe there where my data stop. If yours is to 16,384, you put A1 column A3 that number and move on, and so forth. And then we talk about harmonic mean. So we talk about geometric mean. We say why it does. Data set that are expressed in ratios, percentages, either for growth rates or investment returns. Investment return will be expressed in ratio or percent, right? Why are the business people here? Talk to me. Right? So that's when we use geometric means. So you will not use geometric means when you are not talking about those aspects. You getting it? This is what I thought to talk about it. Harmonic mean. We say it is a measure of reciprocal. So for that one is like I have, for example, 1. The reciprocal will be 1 over 1. 3. The reciprocal of 3 will be 1 over 3, right? Oh, sorry. Anyway, but that's it. So if I reciprocate myself, instead of my legs on the floor, my head will be on the floor and my legs will be in the air, right? That's the overturning of it. So in a harmonic mean, we are also looking at the averages of rates, ratios, or frequencies. So once your data set is not talking about rate, it's not talking about ratios, then you don't have anything to do with harmonic mean. That's what I brought in. You getting the point? Yeah? The reason I brought in geometric mean is once the data set is not talking about growth rate or investment return, you don't have anything to do with geometric mean. And also, if you're not talking about rates, if you're not talking about ratios or frequencies, you have nothing to do with harmonic mean. Are we on course? Then the next one is the trend mean. We say trend mean calculates the value of data set by removing certain percentage of lowest and highest value. You see that for this one, you have a data set from 1 to 100, for example. You want to see the lowest data or the lower value and then the highest value. You want to extract the highest value and the lower value and then calculate the data in a specific domain. That's when you use this one. So I have 10%, for example. So I'm saying take 10% of the lowest value of the data set and take 10% of the highest value of the data set and just calculate the result in between, and that will give me my means. Now, the more common and prevalent one we use is the arithmetic means. R or divided by the number of persons that responded, right? And that's how we apply these things in Excel. Any question?
Then following my question,
Yeah.
It is also important to tell the importance of that equal, because if you are using Excel, you don't get the comment of adding that equal symbol. And also, if you forget about it, if you require a comma or a column and you don't include it, it will give you an error. So you will not do it for why I'm doing it right, why am I getting error? So you have to include all of the components that are needed. Don't say because there's a column maybe that doesn't have an important. In Excel, it is very, very meaningful. And another thing I didn't see for this, I don't know whether you have it up front, is the issue of filtering, because you had data that have imported the data, and those data have different means or different reasons they are there. So if you are dealing with the one that had to do with it, meaning that you have to filter, you do the one with it and try to work, you know what you want that.
Thank you for that input. It's brilliant, and I believe the handsome men in the house, I only want to hear, I want to hear a hand clap from the handsome men for a handsome clap. Yeah, thank you. So that's it. just as if you wanted to eat yamachoma, I say yamachoma, right? That's the food I really love eating in Kenya, and mokemo. Exactly. Yeah. So mokemo cannot be a mokemo if you lack those things that make up to be it, right? Listen, and the same as yamachoma. He said yamachoma you should have ugali and a beef. Isn't so? Good. If you have anything lacking in beef, it is not what it is. So it's the same with this in Excel. Once you want to write a formula, your ingredients for yamachoma should be there, and that is the equal sign. Also, you should have this pair of brackets, is referred to as parentheses. And then, if it has to do with columns, you should include them just as he said it rightly. And if you saw in this one, or you are seeing in this one, I have a comma. So I'm saying the range is from the first cell in column C to the second cell in column C. But I want you to take 10% of the lowest of the value in this column and take 10% of the highest of the values in this column. To do that, I separate that with a comma. Are we on course? Good. Thank you. So for factoring, I actually wasn't teaching Excel. That's why I didn't really go into Excel in detail, but I'll just try to show light on it. Thank you. I think we may have another time, or what I will do, I try to learn how to teach online. So maybe when I've learned how to teach online, I will also teach online. Thank you. So now we're using Excel to find mode, range, and median. So again, use the equal sign. If you want to find a mode for, we say, it's possible that you can have a data set where you have more than 2 occurrences occur the most. Or what do I mean? For example, can I use? Okay, let's say we want to talk about okay, let's just do a short. Please let's see the hands of those that are in education. Education. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, those that are in applied science. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and those are in engineering, medicine, medical. Good. Okay, so let's assume that we're using this short data set as our discussion, and then we're going to see which data appears, right? So we're looking at pairing, education, applied science, education, medical, education, D1, and so forth, right? If education and another that pair appear the most, that means having 2 more frequently occurring value, right? So usually we use numbers to say 3, 4, 5. Let's say we have 3 appearing more, 5 appearing more, and 6 appearing more in a data set. That means we have more than 3 values appearing in the mode, right? So that will refer to as multi-mode. So say to find the mode of a data set that has more than 1 data appearing more frequent, then we use this formula. Equal mode dot, that's a point. MULT is a short form for multiple. So when I say multiple occurrence, and then you see the number of, they will list them. Like I said 5, I said 3, 5, and 6, for example. If you have 3, 5, and 6 appearing multiple times in a data set, once you apply this formula in Excel will list the frequent of the number that have appeared. If there are 2, you see them. If there are 3, you see them. If there are 4, you see them as it will be listed. Now, for a single occurrence, number that appear, just a single number that appear more than all the other numbers, you use mode dot single, SING. It's just SI, it's just this form of single, SNGL, and that gives you the value of Now, for range, we know that the range is the highest minus the lowest, isn't so? For a data set, if we want to find a range, we subtract the lowest value or the lowest value of the data set from the highest value of the data set. So in Excel, we say equal max is maximum, meaning the highest, minus MIN, mean the minimum. So we subtract the highest from the lowest to find it. And it should also cover the range of the cells of what you have it in, and that will give you the range. Now to calculate the median, we use this, or these are the formulas we use for these things. These will be given. You can use these things and try it in your Excel sheet and also test them to see whether it makes sense. For standard deviation, first we start with variance. We say in calculating simple variance or the sample variance. Now remember, we have the population and the sample. So can anyone help us, this noble body, to tell us the difference between sample and population?
Okay.
Yeah.
Mathematically, when you talk about population, you're talking about the universal, and when you're talking about sample, you have a source set of the universal set.
Thank you. Educationally? now you have done mathematics, so how educational is?
Your population will be either university, and your sample will be context.
Okay.
Just a department within the university.
Okay.
So,
any other contribution? I would love to hear the East African English because me, I actually want to learn Kiswahili. Maybe I will marry a Kiswahili woman to take me.
The population is normally denoted as capital N.
Thank you.
Sample small n.
Yeah. I love that. Also, I will appreciate all the gentlemen in the house to clap for that beautiful lady for that. Okay, yeah. Someone was saying something or raising your hand. Okay, so the population, talking about the general. For example, the population of Kenya, as I have read, is about 42 million, 47 million. And if someone was doing a research in Kenya and want to capture the 47 million, they are conducting a census research. That will call census, right? Now, if you want to take part of it, then you are conducting a sample research. With that, for me, my sample research I took, instead of taking the 47 million in Kenya to do my research, I went to a county called Nakuru. And in Nakuru County, I noticed that Nakuru, as I have read also, Nakuru have 2.2 million population. Can you imagine that? I also went in and took a sample out of that. I went to secondary schools. Maybe I don't want to deal with all the population in Nakuru. Breaking down the population that you see there. Then, from the secondary schools, I also decided to break down the secondary schools to Form 2. But I cannot do all the schools in Nakuru. You get my point? So that's why we say when you are calculating a variance for a sample, it means you are just looking at that particular group that you are so concerned about in your study. Yeah? Okay. So that's what we use to find that. We have VAR, VAR.S, VARA. All of these three approaches will give you the same result. It will not change anything. I just want to put them there so that you can know. If you say VAR and apply what you have the same value as if you were using VARA or VAR.S. You have the same value. So it will give you the same variance. It won't change. Now for population, we use VARP. P representing the population. and dot P or PAP. It will still give all the same value. What's the form? Who can tell all the formula for calculating variance? Okay, we'll keep that one for another day. Thank you. Standard deviation of a sample data. The same thing that we do in variance, we also do the same for sample data. Yeah, in calculating the standard deviation, we use STDVE to represent standard deviation, and then we use dot S. The S is the sample. Or rather, just forget about adding the dot S. You just do it where you still get the same result as it will go. And then for population, this way, it will still give us the same answer. Remember, for sample, the standard deviation for sample will be different from population. Because sample, you're not giving the whole population, you're getting a point. It's the same. The variance for a population will not be the same as the variance for sample. So I will get that in 2 points. Any question? We move on. Now, using the if. So some people were using male and female, for example, in our data. Remember, you have male, female gender that you are discussing gender. So you are not examining number. Initially, we talked about coding your data, right? Is this so? Good. So if you want to code your data, you first have to count the number of texts in a particular cell. How many times it appeared. It is that value that will help you analyze that data. Are you getting it? So, for example, we're talking about categories of schools or let's say profession in a youth. So we see some are medical students, some are applied science, education, and in education have categories, some doing mathematics education, physics education, geography education, and you need the rest of them, right? Now, we put them in words, we didn't count them, but we just check as they are. John Brown, mathematics education. Peter Paul, oh sorry, John Brown is a West African name, so I want to use West African, East African name. Yeah, Zuri Matinga, Otieno, sorry, is that yours? Yeah, so those names. Yeah. So you notice that you have that data set up to maybe 40, and you have education, this, and so forth. Now I want to know how many times education appear in the data set. How many times applied science appear in my data set. How many times medical science appear in my data set. To do that, you use this formula by saying count if equal count if. You open a parenthesis from A to D. You are saying count if from A to D this text appeared. And that will be, for example, now we talk about applied science. So I have a data set maybe up to 100. And I want to know how many times applied science appear in my data set. Right? So I will use equal count if the column in which, the row and the column in which that data set is. That's the reference point up to the point it ends with a comma. And in quotation, within quotation, I put the value of what I'm talking about. So you see applied science, for example, right? So where I have the text in the data set, I will now put in. Once I hit enter, the number of times applied science appear will show. So that we see text 1. And then I apply that. So I assume that I have this number to be 45 for text 1 for applied science, and then maybe for the next one, which is about medical study, to be 12, education to be 11, and then we say engineering to be 13. So that will be the 4 categories of my data set. With this, I can now use these 4